Come up with a title and description for a video on the topic. Oh, mine gets a little more in-depth at that. I broke up with the girl on a Monday, but me being me, I tried to stay friends with her. When I broke up with her, she kept saying I needed to give her 6 more weeks for closure, and that I was her last chance at dating. She is 28. On Friday she shows up and says, "Elbow, I am going to let you go, but I want you to know I am pregnant." The next day she calls me, saying she is going to there. Later that day I get a phone call. She says that it's a tubular pregnancy and she needs to take the abortion pill. Note, usually this requires surgery. She asked me if I would come over that night, because she would need moral support. I felt obligated to go. When I was there, I told her I was going to leave. When she went to bed, she started to cry and said she was afraid she might hurt herself, so I needed to stay there. That freaked me out a bit, so I did. At night then she took my hand, put it on her belly and said say goodbye. So, next day I woke up and got the hell out, figure it was all over. That Monday, I get a phone call. She says I am still pregnant. Apparently, according to her, she had had twins, and the one had survived. I told her I wanted to go with her to her next doctor's appointment. She said fine. It was weird. On Tuesday she messages me, tells me they had an opening so she went early. Asked if I wanted a picture. I said sure. She sent me one, and I looked at it. No information on it. So I asked her, and she said they emailed it to her. Made sense. They removed all identifiable information. 2 days later, a friend with better Google foo than me took that picture and found it online, under someone else's name. You could even see where parts of the image had elements removed. I confronted her about it. She said she couldn't believe I would believe her and my child would never know who I am. The next day she sent me an email saying her lawyer would be in touch. The next day then she sent me an email saying she was going to have the abortion, but I needed to pick her up and pay for it. 5 minutes later she sent me an email saying that if I didn't respond, she would just keep the child. I responded back saying that I had found the image, showed her the link, and said her story has about 1 to 500,000 chance of being real, even without the fake image. I said if she continued to harass me, I would get a protection from harassment. 2 weeks went by, I hear nothing. Then, I get a call at 6 p.m. from her home number. The girl, that sounds very much like her, says that she is her cousin, going to be her lawyer, and I need to call back. Only problem, that callback number was her home phone number, so obviously this is fake as well. Oh, and this has been my last 3 weeks. So, it's probably not even over. I have two. First one was a girl I'd been seeing for a few months. I was 21, she was 24 and had a boy about 2 years old. She was basically normal, had a good job, took care of the kid okay. She was kind of a dim bulb though, not very bright. I was bored in the relationship and really didn't want to become stepdad to the kid, so I ended it. No prob. Run into her a month or so later at a bar and we end up going back to her place for a night of sex. Next morning she makes coffee and breakfast. I go to school, she goes to work. I get incredibly sick on the way to school, throw up multiple times, make it to school still puking, find the nurse, medical office, and vaguely recall being loaded into an ambulance. Come to in the hospital. A DOC tells me I out on an enormous amount of meth and had about 5 minutes left to live before they figured it out. Oh, by the way, there are some federal agents here to talk to you. Turns out she had planned this whole thing and decided that if she couldn't have me, no one could. She went to jail but got a reduced sentence for turning on the family member that was making and distributing the meth. Second one, not as bad. Dated casually for a few weeks. Decided she wasn't for me, so I called it off. Get a call a week or so later saying I gave her gonorrhea. WTF. Go to the doc. Get tested with a thing down Mr. P-hole. Results come back. I'm clean. It then comes back to me that it was just revenge for breaking up with her. She was going to tell me she was pregnant and make me pay for the abortion but was talked out of that by her best friend. I would have rather paid the money. I went out of town for my best friend's wedding in which I was a bridesmaid. I didn't take my boyfriend at the time as per request of the bride. It is her day and considering my BF and I were on the outs at the time, I was not opposed to this. He's an ADD kid and didn't get his meds refilled before I left town for 4 days. This is his meltdown. Started off okay. We would text back and forth, but I wouldn't be able to reply as fast because I'm helping with a wedding. He overdosed on Valium and told me he was wandering around outside, then doesn't answer his phone for 6 hours, in which I'm panicking cause I'm a 6-hour drive away from my home and if he's wandered off in his fucked up state or not. I break down. My best friend's stepdad, an ex-cop, sits with me and lets me know some options on what I can do from far away. Eventually I sent my apartment manager over to see if he had left T house or not. Apparently he had fallen asleep cause he took so many drugs. The actual day of the ceremony he flips out again because I don't have time to talk to him at all. Tensions are high for the wedding party as we are pushing to get this ceremony on its way. I leave my phone in my bag while I help the bride and groom. Come back to no less than 10 voicemails and 30 texts, half of it incoherent HDJWKFISIAJDJ style typing. This continues the whole weekend. I stop responding, come home to find my blinds torn, DVD player smashed, cooking oil spilled all over my kitchen floor that he made me clean up because apparently it was my fault he knocked it over while I wasn't even in town, and my entire nail polish collection. Over 50 colors. Destroyed. I'm still finding cracked bottles. It's amazing how I haven't died from all those fumes. Red-colored Kool-Aid splashed everywhere, even inside kitchen drawers. I don't even know how that happened. He didn't apologize for any of it. His only words were, "You made me do it. If you hadn't ignored me, this would have never happened." We are no longer together, of course, but this is just one episode of many. This man will be 30 next month. I pity his next girlfriend. Edit. The incident happened last year. So this is a 29-year-old man throwing temper tantrums. I remember this in hindsight. At 21 I was dating with and living with a 20-year-old who had two parents who were involved in healthcare. We worked in healthcare. It was her ultimate goal to be an OB/GYN. She studied the vagina, birth, and women's health even before she was done with her bachelor's. She had been diagnosed with irregular periods ages before we started dating. She was also on birth control. That didn't stop her from taking a home pregnancy test every time her period was 1 or 2 days off. I once not so jokingly told her that if we had Native American names, hers would be peas on sticks. She was obsessed with the idea that her BC wasn't working, and I had knocked her up. She was obsessed with taking a home pregnancy test at least once every month to 2 months. Warning, this part is an SFW and SFL. Then 1 month she had a really horrible period where she passed a bunch of lining and bled a ton. Any girl who has really bad periods knows that when they pass a bunch of uterine lining during their period, it's pretty nasty. She insisted that she had just miscarried our unborn child. Refused to take a pregnancy test to confirm. Refused to acknowledge the fact that she had her period last month, and if she had miscarried, the zygote would be so tiny she would never notice, mind you. Her parents were both RNs and she read and watched everything about pregnancy and childbirth she could get her hands on. Refused to go to the doctor to get a blood test. Most times when you miscarry, there is enough HCG in the blood or urine that a pregnancy test ends up positive. Still, so this girl who was absolutely obsessed with taking the home P tests to the point we could have had stock in EPT refused to take a home pregnancy test at all. Nope. She insisted she had miscarried. So she started mourning. Told her parents she had miscarried. Told all our mutual friends she had miscarried. And then made me feel bad because I didn't grieve. She even named her period lining a male name, because she knew it would have been a boy, and bought a special miscarriage remembrance necklace from some vendor online, so she could always wear it and never forget her poor miscarried uterine lining. My high school girlfriend told me she had cancer after our first date. She asked me not to tell anyone, and that her parents got really upset if it was mentioned, so to not talk about it with anyone. I dated her for 6 months. She turned herself anorexic to appear sickly. Once I started making friends, no one understood why I was with her and I kept her secret. Well, I finally put two and two together after she told me she was going in for chemo on a Monday. She said she wasn't going to be at school for at least a week. I caught her trying to hide from me before the first class and asked her how her chemo went. She said it went so well and that all her hair fell out, but they sewed it all together and sewed the wig to her head. Yeah. She was a special one. My crazy ex-boyfriend told me one day while we were still dating that I loved my 10-week-old kitten more than him. He asked me that night if he could take him home with him to keep him awake during the drive. I said no, but he took him anyways. The next morning he called to tell me that he woke up late, jumped out of bed, and accidentally crushed him with both feet in his exact words. He was all kinds of crazy, and this may even be the least terrible thing he did in our short time together. I really hate that guy, EDIT, for those of you who are asking. Here is a response I made to someone with more of the story. Okay. See, I have some concerns that he may also be a Redditor. But I've already put the story out there, so if he sees this, then I guess he sees this. I won't go into much detail at all because it is still really hard for me. But let's just say he was also a sexual predator, and I don't believe I was the only victim during the time of our relationship and the short time after. I believe the other was a child. I had no solid proof, but I did finally get the courage to report him. And fortunately it was too long after it had occurred, and nothing was done in my case, and he was not charged in the other. I was able to break off contact shortly thereafter, so I'm not really sure what happened. But he had confronted my brother about it and tried to contact my mother, who managed to scare him away from me, only after I got a threatening phone call from an unidentified person. The detective I was working with stopped contacting me, and the whole thing just kind of dropped. I never got any real closure on the situation, and the whole thing still haunts me. And for those of you who have taken to criticizing me for not seeing the red flags, all I can say to you is this. You are welcome to go back and take a walk in my 18-year-old shoes and see how you deal with a charming psychopath who has everyone you know on his side. It was a very bad time in my life. I only hope that you never encounter someone like that, and if you do, maybe you can do it better than I did. I will say that I learned a lot from my experience and will never ignore my gut instinct ever again. I hope that this story will help others learn that too. It's incredibly important, and even if you feel silly or mean, listen to what your gut tells you and don't look back. Hey Ditito, thank you guys for all of the supportive comments. They really mean a lot to me. And thanks to whoever gave me the gold. I wish it could have been for something more positive, but either way, it brightened my day. Final edit. For those concerned about my well-being, thank you. This all happened a very long time ago, and I have since married a wonderful man and have a lovely little family of healthy, happy, safe pets. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope that maybe it will help at least one person out there. I've posted this before, but it fits this question pretty well. I think I was around 18 years old. We'd been dating for about 8 months, and I broke up with him because my parents were treating me differently and I didn't like it. It put too much strain on both my BF and my parents and I's relationship, and I couldn't take it. Broke up with him one night, and about a week later he showed up at my parents' house wanting to talk to me. My mom answered the door. I didn't want any part of it, so she told him to go away. He got belligerent and eventually left, so she called the police. He was pulled over and given a warning, then they let him be. Dad was at work, Mom took sister somewhere, and I was playing Mario Party on my Wii at home. There was a knock at the back door and I looked through the glass from the couch and he was there looking and trying to talk to me. Again, I didn't want any part of it, so I ignored him. He got mad and shouldered the door. The frame cracked. He did it again, and the door burst open. I said, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he grabbed me and put me over his shoulder and carried me outside. I figured he was just going to put me in the front seat and leave with me, but then he popped the trunk of his car with the remote and I realized what was going to happen. I twisted a little, which surprised him, and he dropped me, but then he put me in a headlock where I couldn't breathe and I stopped struggling. He tossed me in the trunk and shut it and drove off. At this point, I was doing everything I could to get out of the trunk. It was a Buick LeSabre. The model, which, of course, doesn't have a way to open the trunk from the inside, so I started kicking the back of the seats to get out. I eventually got one open enough to stick my head through to get some air. It was in August, and the temperatures outside were riding 95 degrees, so inside the trunk was about 110. I got my head out and could finally breathe. He had calmed down a bit, and I knew he just wanted to talk to me. So, he didn't really freak when I was able to climb into the back seat. when he was putting me in the trunk. The neighbor kids were outside, and they saw what was happening and ran inside to tell their parents. Parents called the police. Police called my mom, and my mom was doing 95 down the highway to get home. X-BF drove me an hour and a half away to an old camp he used to go to, and we talked for a while. He then took me to Pizza Hut cause I said I was hungry. I remember wondering why no one was concerned that I was waiting for a pizza without shoes or socks on. Because no one said anything, I figured my parents hadn't realized what had happened yet. Little did I know, an Amber Alert had already been issued. Anyways, he decided he didn't want to go to jail, so he was going back to his place of residence to get his shotgun. When he got there, the cops were waiting for him and tried to taser him. They missed, and he jumped back in his car and did a backwards U-turn. He started driving through the city at speeds of 60 to 85 mph. If you've never been in a high-speed police pursuit, let me tell you, it's a rush. So much adrenaline. Anyways, he was going to get on the highway, but the police had it blocked off with spike strips, so he turned onto a back road that dead-ended. He ended up crashing into a tree. I was in the front seat by this time. The cops swarmed the car, pulled us both out, and since they didn't realize who we were, cuffed us both and put us in separate cop cars. Once everything was situated, they uncuffed me and put me in a police SUV and transported me back to the police station in my city. Parents and sister were there, freaked out, found out I was okay. The whole ordeal lasted around 10 hours. X got 4 years and is now out of jail in a halfway house. DRX broke into house, had locked me into his trunk on a 90-degree day. 10 hours later got in a high-speed police pursuit resulting in him crashing into a tree and being arrested. He got 4 years, is now out of jail in a halfway house. Edited for formatting. My little brother picked up a real winner a couple years ago. He was 16 and it was his first, so I don't blame him for his ignorance. Story number 1. I was 20 at the time and away at college a couple states away, so I only got to go home a couple times a year. I go home for Christmas one year and take my brother out snowboarding. We had a blast, except he was acting all weird and kept checking his phone every few minutes. Apparently he was supposed to hang out with this new GF that morning because he didn't know I was coming into town a day early. He told her that I got into town early and he was gonna go hang out with me. She was pissed. Apparently your only brother coming into town for Christmas wasn't a good enough excuse to ditch her. She continued to send harassing, threatening texts all day till I finally took his phone away and pulled the battery. She didn't like this. When we got home that night, she was in our house, downstairs with the lights off waiting for us. She pretty much drug him off into his room in one of her little pissy fits. I could hear her yelling over the TV. I went in and pulled him out of there and told her to go home. She came out a little later and sat down next to him while we watched TV. My parents had already passed out, so when he went upstairs to get some ice cream, it was just me and her. This is my first time really meeting her in person, so I thought I'd break the awkwardness with a simple, anything you want to watch. After a minute of just staring into space, she turned to me and said, I make your brother happier than you ever will. Story number 2. I kick her out and she threatens that if my brother doesn't come with, she's gonna leave him. I tell him go and I'll see him tomorrow. Long story short, he misses out on the big family get-together for Christmas because she wants to spend the time lost with him. Story number 3. I'm away at college but heard this one later through my brother. Him and her are driving back to her place separately. She's in a Prius, him right behind in his big redneck truck. She doesn't have a license and doesn't really even know how to drive apparently, cause she slides off the gravel road around a corner and rolls her grandma's Prius. She doesn't have a license, doesn't have insurance, and doesn't want to take the blame for anything. So guess who she convinces to say he was driving? They park his truck at her house, walk back to the scene, and he will forever have high insurance rates because of this. Story number 4, probably my favorite one yet. It's 1 year later. I'm back for Christmas. Earlier that winter, my brother finally broke up with her. Yet she continued to text him, stalk him every day. If he was at a party, she'd conveniently show up and try to get back together. One night at a party, my brother jokingly told her, you know, if you keep showing up like this, I'm gonna have to get a restraining order on you. She didn't take it as a joke. The next day she was in the police station, bawling her eyes out to her dad's buddy about how my brother was the one harassing and stalking her. She got a restraining order on him. He got the notice in the mail and texted her a simple, WTF. The cops came and arrested him 2 days before Christmas. He couldn't get a bail hearing until the following Monday, so he missed Christmas again because of her.